Good evening, Lena. And so we're back. We have allowed the dough to season or to cold retard in the refrigerator since our last visit. The dough in this case has been sitting for 24 hours, longer than the 3-hour minimum, but it's fine. It can go, as from what I've read, up to 72 hours. I've never done that. The longer it sits in the refrigerator, it doesn't get the bubbles anymore, but it does develop a richness in its flavor and sometimes a more sour taste. So here are the loaves. These are the loaves in the banneton, the way I put them away with the shower cap on them. And you can see they're not appreciably bigger. So now the step that we're going to do is put them into the baking container, and we're going to score them. Remember that I told you that we were going to cook in the top, what's technically the top of that Dutch oven. So we're going to take this. Here's our parchment paper. We're going to put the parchment paper over the dough. You remember we used that rice flour that will allow it to release, and I'll show you how nicely that works. Here is the dough in here, nice and cold, fresh out of the refrigerator. And simple as that, it releases. Now you can see these lines on here. These lines, each of these ridges has a little bit of flour in there. And this is one reason that people use the banneton, is that it gives these nice circular flour edges to it. Now, when we put this to the heat of the oven, we're going to want it to expand. And in order to allow it to expand a lot, we're going to do two things. We're going to keep it moist by having it in the inside of this Dutch oven. And we're also going to score it with a razor blade, and that will allow this skin to peel back and allow the loaf to grow. A lot of sourdough bakers use this tool. It's called a lame. It is spelled L-A-M-E. And it's a lovely, lovely tool, but a little too fancy for a country girl like me. I end up just using a razor blade. My favorite score pattern, and you'll see people that use a lot of different, very intricate score patterns. You'll see sheaves of wheat. You'll see people with just an ear. We'll do that. In this case, we're going to do just a slice to let it grow, and I'll do something a little fancier on the next one. So you can see it's got kind of a tough skin to it. I'm going to pierce the skin. You notice not straight down, but at an angle, right? And I'm going to cut in. Look how deep. Hold still. Can you see how deep that blade is? So I'm going to cut straight across, and I'm going to hold my dough. Now, because the dough is cold, it makes it a little bit firmer and a little easier to cut. So you can see the angle and you can see the depth of the blade there, right? People that are a little more experienced than me can do this in one fell swoop, one quick slice, but I'm not like that. We're going to do a little design here. We're going to do sheaves of wheat, so I'm going to make very thin, tiny little cuts here. Tiny, tiny little cuts, just barely sticking the tip of the blade in there, and we're going to make little sheaves of wheat. Okay, so we're going to do one there, and we're going to do just a couple little particles of wheat over here, and see how that comes out. I haven't actually had a lot of success with this design myself. We use the parchment paper. I want to show you this. This one has finally needed to be retired, okay? This one is probably 12 bakes in. So don't forget that even though it looks brown, you can use the parchment paper over and over again. I'm going to set this to one side, and we're going to do the other one. So here's my trusty Dutch oven lid. Here's my nice loaf in the banneton. Let's see how it releases. See if that rice flour lets it come out. And just like that, it comes out. Now I'm going to set these aside. These are moist, and I cannot put them away that way. You don't want to wash these. They're seasoned now. After this bread is finished baking, I will put these in the warm oven to dry, and then I will brush this flour out, and they'll be ready to use the next time. All right, so here's my nice loaf, and I'm gonna do a spiral cut. This is my favorite. It's a little bit. This is why I have the Lazy Susan under here to help me do this. Makes it a little easier. I don't know if you can see the cut that I'm doing here. And I'm going to go back over and repeat this just to make sure that I didn't miss any areas or get anything caught. I like this to spring up like a nice spiral. And just to repeat, what I'm doing here is allowing this soft, nice, moist dough that's under here to expand by cutting this skin that has been made while it was retarding in the refrigerator. Okay, and you can see that. You can see that cut that's been made. All right, so let me just go over that one last time to make sure that I've got it done nicely. And everything has separated. Got a nice cut in there. I'm not going any deeper, just making sure that there's nothing stuck or nothing that I skipped over. Voila, all done. Okay, so now there's one very nice thing else about sourdough, and that is a nice blistery crust. A lot of people like that. I'm one of the people that likes it. So we're going to take these over to the stove, and the one last step that I'm going to do before I put them in the oven is I'm going to spritz them with some water. I'm going to quick cap them with the Dutch oven, and then I'm going to stick them in the stove, inside the oven. Okay, so let's take these over to the stove top, and we'll do them over there. Okay. So here we are. Here's the tops, technically the bottoms, but here's the tops to my Dutch oven. What's going to be my lid. I'm going to spritz it with the water here, just briefly. And I'm going to spritz this with water. Not a lot, you don't want to soak it. And I'm going to put these on. Speaking from experience, it's better if you put these on just a little bit off center because it makes it easier for you to get them off. The first part of the cooking happens with the lid on, but the last 15 minutes or so is done with the lid off. And these are so hot and so heavy that it makes it easier for you to pull it out and get these off when they're not married. All right, I'm going to stick these into a cold oven. We'll talk later personally about a cold oven start. A cookbook that I recommended to you by Elaine Boddy talks about the cold oven start, and I found it to be a real blessing. I'll be back after these loaves have been cooked, and we'll look at the process then. The next thing that we'll see is when we pull them out and before they're browned, and then we'll finally see the end product in the last video. All right, see you soon.